Hey, what is up everybody? Today we're gonna be taking a look at Season 12 of SpongeBob SquarePants. So after the amazing watch that Season 11 was, is it even possible to top that? Well, today will provide us the answer. I have rewatched every single episode of Season 12 and there's some surprises, some positive, some negative, so stay tuned for that. To be honest, prior to making this video, I haven't fully seen all of the episodes, just bits of them, so I'm very happy I could finally catch up and just see what's up. And once again, the trusty tier list is here, and with all that said, let's dive right into Season 12. Farmer Bob. Right off the bat, I love how they acknowledge how the Krusty Krab is being supplied. Of course, it has to be somehow. Up to this point, it wasn't really that important, but it's neat we are getting an episode about it. SpongeBob being sent to the farm for a job instead of Krabs paying for the bills. This is just classic Krabs. And in general, I find it really cool when an employee learns something about his job. It is neat how this is the first true farm episode of the series. And yeah, this is just main characters trying their best on a farm, and this is their first time in that location, but screwing up all the chores anyway, no matter how trivial they are. Still though, just like it was in Season 11, this season continues filling up every single shot with expressive animation and a lot of humor. So even if something is easy to predict, the show will still try to make it entertaining and put a lot of twists to it. And hey, I glorified it in Season 11 because it is a good thing. Season 11 was awesome and I'm expecting the same from Season 12. So far so good. Like the tractor scene, pretty energetic and fun. The joke of Old Man Jenkins looking up the picture of a rake is a hilarious little gag, even though, as I mentioned in the previous video, Old Man Jenkins is far from being my favorite character. Thankfully, the second part of the episode gets so much better with the literal barn raising. The barn is a literal baby, and they are rising like a baby. I gotta admit, it was both funny and clever. That worm, based on a pig, being scared of the ham boots is a little dark and I love it. But my absolute favorite part of the episode, the aliens. I'm a huge sucker of aliens in pop culture and even in real life if it's done ironically or as a parody, which is referenced here. SpongeBob's shenanigans accidentally making the crop circles, and that's what brought the aliens here. It's clever, it's funny, they made a great job with that joke. I guess the two halves of the episode balance out to be an A-tier episode. And I guess the aliens taking crabs at the very end of the episode is kind of his comeuppance for leaving SpongeBob at the farm. Oh no. Are we really doing this again? I know I said that Krabs is getting his comeuppance a lot in the previous video, but come on, I'm not gonna be saying that here. I'll try not to. Gary and Spot. Right into another common trope. This time it's about pets and their secret nighttime life. When the owners go to sleep and we can see what do they do. And given how Gary is an analog to a cat, yeah, it makes sense, he should be nocturnal, but now that I'm thinking about it, he's shown sleeping whenever there's night in the show. Also, we get another Pat the dog? Seriously, why do we need that episode to exist? Also, fundamentally, why should be Gary afraid of the animal control? He has a name tag, or at least should have it, so he would probably quickly get released and not get any more of Marvin's attention. I understand that Gary's friend could get in trouble. Maybe this is why he is following Gary. Spot returns! Again. And throughout the whole episode, it is a little noisy, but this is a minor complaint, since both of them have really good and creative scenes. The scene at the Krusty Krab is pretty funny, how Gary is impersonating SpongeBob. This is within his character, and I find it really cute how many friends Gary has. Even the bully snail stayed as his friend. One thing I'm really not a fan of is Marvin's story, how he is all lonely. Well, true, he is working night shifts alone, so I think it is adorable how all the pets try to make him happy with snail mucus. I feel like there could have been different ways to do his story, but this one is alright. It is also a nighttime episode, which I absolutely love, and in my eyes it always scores an episode extra points. Also, this whole thing didn't need to be Sandy's storytelling. While I'm glad this isn't one of those fairy tales episodes, this whole thing could have worked without her. You know what? I thought this would be a B-tier episode, solely because this is the Secret Life of Pets story, but no, I'll bump it up to A-tier. I shouldn't be judging the book by its cover. This episode is pretty neat. The nitwitting. So I gotta say, I know that a lot of people just wanna hate on everything modern SpongeBob related, whether they truly dislike it or just blindly follow what some reviewers had to say. And a lot of the times, they are wrong. However, if people don't watch SpongeBob for a long time, and this is the episode that they stumble upon, I can totally get why they would start the hate train. Listen, I'm not that kind of person to just blindly hate. Quite the contrary, I'm making these videos to show that modern SpongeBob has never gone bad, but this episode is just exactly like the popular belief. It's literally everybody just being dumb, doing all sorts of really dumb activities, making noises and stupid faces. It's exactly what people think all of modern SpongeBob is. And this is wrong. Yeah, I don't know why they had this idea. Why would they make this episode in particular? It's really unnecessary and gives the series a bad image. Second half of the episode is slightly better though, since the Empty Head Society almost doesn't appear here. I like how SpongeBob tries to resist the brainlessness. He struggles to do things but never fully becomes a nitwit. In fact, SpongeBob as a character is really great in this episode, due to his rational thinking and skepticism. And the bit with Sandy being in the counter society to the Empty Heads was really funny. Their theme being a reference to the comical duo of Lauren Hardy is a pretty nice touch too. The episode will go to the C tier. Usually episodes like this can be enjoyed ironically, like it tells us we should kinda just stop thinking and just laugh at the stupid humor. But in this particular instance, I think there's just too much humor that is just plain stupid and not enjoyable at all. With the worst thing being the joke of drinking spit. It is so gross. Ever since I was a child, I was disgusted by things like spitting and all of this. Once something enters your mouth, it should not be going out. The Ballad of Filthy Muck. I don't know why, but I always found it really hilarious when there's a cartoon episode when the main character has trouble being really dirty and smelly and it has to be resolved. This is what all the cartoons taught me as a kid, that smelly equals funny. Okay, I do think SpongeBob wanting to smell more of Patrick was really disturbing. However, I do really enjoy the montage of Patrick just enjoying all the trash. It is hilarious. Also, the song that plays in the meantime is really neat too. I also like the bigger montage of SpongeBob trying to clean Filthy Muck. The little speech SpongeBob gave was kinda moving in a way. This episode will go straight to the S tier. Old Man Jenkins also isn't enough to ruin this episode for me. In fact, I think his scenes and lines are really hilarious. I really love the sunset and nighttime towards the end of the episode. The fake out how in reality it turns out it was not Patrick was a good one. And I also found it really cute how Filthy Muck is waving at us at the end. Overall, there isn't too much to say about this episode. It's just really fun and energetic. Just really good. The Krusty Slammer. First off, I love how the paint's name Plankton is using is Evil Red, and that he got caught red-handed for this. Simple jokes like these go a long way. And we also get a joke of Plankton being too small to get handcuffed. Here, honestly, I just prefer when he's put into a tiny cage. I appreciate how the cop is saying that there's no more jails to put Plankton into, because I was just about to ask, yeah, why aren't there any more penitentiaries in Bikini Bottom? Well, I guess the simple answer is to make this episode work. We've seen it plenty of times when Krusty Krab has been rebranded to some other things. The prison is a new one and it works so well, especially knowing how Mr. Krabs behaves sometimes. And the motivation for him is money, of course. Police apparently paying the prison to incarcerate all the criminals, although it's not how it works in real life. Putting Plankton into literal SpongeBob hole is both funny and kinda disturbing. In general, Krabs is a little bit too harsh for Plankton in this episode, but it's not enough to not put this episode into S tier. Again, the jail at the Krusty Krab is something that just really works. The interior design with the cells, as well as the exterior, just looks so dope. I think it's adorable how SpongeBob made it all like home for the prisoners, and thanks to him, it ultimately spirals out of control, and Krabs ultimately gets his come up. It turns 180 degrees for Krabs. He was too greedy and broke the law and got punished for it. Literally. It's nice to see Plankton winning at the end, and I also really like how his sentence earlier just ended. And we also got plenty of cameos of older characters here. I gotta say, it's a really clever and solid episode. Pineapple RV. Hey, it's the second time in a row when early in the season Squidward goes on a vacation. The opening really does resemble Man Ray Returns, but we quickly diverge into the new thing. And hey look, it's a reference to the episode The Paper. Fun fact, it was the very first episode I watched of SpongeBob as a kid. We are being introduced to another of Squidward's little interests of nature. Funny how it blooms every 500 years. A little form of extremity in humor is something I always enjoy. Literally after that we get a little montage of Squidward RV being destroyed. It's pretty cool and it ends with a big explosion, and to my surprise we even get a scene with genuine sadness. These are kinda rare now. It's so cute for SpongeBob and Patrick to actually want to make up for their behavior and help Squidward reach his goal. Unfortunately, it's kinda partial here. Yeah, they want all good for Squidward, but they end up just hurting him on every step. Also, a little sad note, it bugs me every time when Blue Danube Waltz is used for zero gravity scene. This cliche is so overdone at this point. In general, I gotta say SpongeBob and Patrick are more on the loud side in this episode, even if they mean all good for Squidward. This is why the episode will go to the A tier. Don't get me wrong, the energy of the episode makes it worth watching, and it's pretty interesting. I can see why people might think they are overdoing it a little here. Also, another shocker, Squidward initially leaves them stranded in the forest, and then gets worried and shows compassion. We get to see a lot of true emotions in this episode, and that's noble. The sea bear scene is reminiscent of the camping episode, and I like the overall idea of making SpongeBob House an RV. And at the end, Squidward wins, so that's a W. Gary's Got Legs. This episode feels like a sequel to the last season's Chatterbox Gary. In fact, it is so similar, they straight up reused the title card for it. It's either a really cool meta reference or just lazy. I wanna believe it's the former. Maybe they originally created two different ideas for similar concept and did not want to put it in one season. It doesn't really matter. We just get another episode where Gary becomes more humanoid, and it causes issues later on. First off, the idea of SpongeBob giving Gary new limbs is kinda disturbing in a good dark humor way. Gary overall looks really hilarious. It's hardcore when he straight up just kicks some other pet and later his owner, and then has a fight with everybody in the park. Later on, when SpongeBob is transforming into a snail, it's kinda reminiscent of I Was a Teenage Gary. He looks so gross and disturbing, but also kinda in a positive way. This episode will go to the A tier. It's pretty simple, all things considered. I was shocked to see once Krabs showed up at SpongeBob's house, the episode was already 9 minutes in. Yeah, the pace is a bit slower, but in a positive way. The solution is, as always, a Krabby Patty, and we also got a small melodramatic scene, but overall, pretty harmless episode. King Plankton. So up until recently, I had no idea what is up with the sea monkeys. I've heard about them in some other American cartoons and movies, but I never really bothered to check myself what those really are. We did not have them here. Only a few weeks prior to today, I found out those are brine shrimp. They are sold as an aquarium pet, and they're also like a little science experiment, so that's really neat. But I digress. This episode makes perfect sense for Plankton and his superiority complex. It's cool to see the world from his point of view, and actually him kinda winning. It's in his character to just rule everybody, and I kinda like seeing him happy. Not too much, of course, because everybody's getting hurt. Yeah, he is a tyrant, he always wants to be, and he rightfully gets punished. Overall, I guess it's also gonna go to the A tier. There's nothing inherently wrong here. The baby joke at the very beginning is something I very agree about. Plankton starting his plot by just getting caught again is something reminiscent of the Krusty Slammer we just had. And the whole scene of Patrick drinking from the aquarium is pretty energetic and fun. My only complaint here is the shrinking belt. Plankton obviously did not need to have it. It's only included for everybody to grow up at the ending. Interestingly enough, Plankton did not grow, but it's like, whatever. Plankton's old chum. We have never really seen how Plankton gets rid of his old chum. Closest problem we had was the grease in Greasy Buffoons. They even got the color to be similar. I get that they wanted to specify that the chum got old by changing its color a little. A much better idea would have been if it was like pale gray or something, so it fits more with the rest of the episode. It's hilarious to see all those places being filled with chum, and SpongeBob being tricked into disposing all of the chum with an excuse of it being a chum day. Yeah, the first half of the episode is fairly simple and straightforward, and even takes place at night. Second part though, the aforementioned chum day is really just Christmas, or more like a parody of Christmas, since we get all these little cliches of everybody behaving so jolly and having the Christmas mood. Though I really did like how it was SpongeBob who caused the catastrophe. And whoa, $1 billion? Another extreme humor I really like. I guess it can also land in A tier. This episode gets more ridiculous the more it goes on. And it went full circle for Plankton, I guess. Stormy weather. So my initial little complaint is how the Cloud parents just abandon their child. They go away so fast. How could they forget their kid? It was right next to them. Anyway, clouds? That's different. The core thing about SpongeBob is it has flower clouds. Yeah, I know, there's been regular clouds countless of times in SpongeBob, but making them their own characters, it's certainly unique. Even if it may or may not have some implications, like, are all the clouds sentient? Obviously, it's just a silly SpongeBob thing, and we shouldn't be really thinking too much about it. Gale Doppler is not inherently a full-blown antagonist. He's just some crazy weather dude who just wants to have the best news. The overall conflict he has with SpongeBob and the little cloud is really cool. A reef blower makes an appearance, although it's incorrectly named a leaf blower, and it's also the only time in season 12 when jellyfish fields appear. I also think this episode has an awesome climax. when the sky turns dark and Gale Doppler fuses with Drizzle to make some sort of a super boss that causes chaos. And the ending, when Drizzle is reunited with his parents, is really adorable. It's not quite S tier worthy, since everybody's a little loud here, but a solid A tier? Absolutely. And hey, if Spot is a recurring character, maybe someday Drizzle Jr. will return too. Also, what the heck is this constipation plunger joke? Gross. Swamp Mates. We have kind of a strange phenomenon this season. Multiple instances of episode being longer and the very next one being a little shorter. Recently it was only happening at the end of the seasons, but of course I'm not complaining here. I think this is cool. The episode is like a semi-special. Well, not really special because it's just a normal episode, just longer. We start this episode with SpongeBob telling a story, and interestingly enough, it's his only appearance here. And oddly enough, this isn't the fairy tale style that will become popular later. We see how Bubble Bass is imagining himself in his own little world, and that's hilarious. And oh my god, is the Chief from Mermaid Man and Barnacle 5. Season 12 keeps on giving with all these random characters and the cameos and references. Bubble Bass's and Patrick's combo is something you need to take with very little seriousness. I can understand why this episode might be just nothing but annoyance, especially from Patrick, but while watching this, they kinda grew on me. Overall, I think this is a B tier episode. The major problem is, it's kind of a nothing episode. Stuff is happening, they have this really big adventure in the swamps. The backgrounds and all their actions are pretty cool, but it's kinda difficult to really care for these two. We just kinda sit here and watch their shenanigans unfold, and you just know they're gonna get away from every problem. The only really cool scene here is the voodoo villain and his powers, and also how they all escape from everybody. And maybe the flood in Bubble Bass's basement was funny too. Anyway, I don't really think this one had to have the extended length. I feel like enough could have been cut or changed to make it 11 minutes. And maybe that would make the whole thing more awesome. Right now, the 16-minute length doesn't really work in favor of the episode. Apart from another appearance of the Chief at the end, this one cannot not be awesome. One Trick Sponge. This episode is better at being shorter than the previous one at being longer, if that makes sense. SpongeBob going around town bothering people is not something I would like to see for 11 minutes. Thankfully it's only like 3 minutes here, and he doesn't behave that annoyingly, I guess. Yeah, the episode almost landed in B tier because of that. But the actual magic trick is a really nice visual little montage. Now this is what I would like to be longer. The entire episode being dedicated to an animation of magical sequences, that would have been really fun. So yeah, I think overall it can go to an A tier. And how could I forget, Sandy's head teleported to the previous episode. How cool is that? I'm a huge sucker for such meta humor. Also, was the inclusion of Fred's leg really that necessary? We had an entire awesome episode about it. We get it. The Krusty Bucket. Bro, Plankton being used as Krabs' razor is so gross, and he brought so much hair with him. Ew. Nonetheless, it is one of my favorite concepts. Cloning characters and even combining them into these amalgamations. And Plankton combining with Krabs? Two enemies merging into one is bound to produce something cool, right? Well, not really. This episode is pretty basic, which is why it will go to the B tier. In general, the whole thing is not really original. Despite revolving around a clone, it's just another of Plankton's schemes that goes wrong, and we need to see him and Krabs working together, which they hate, and start to fight a lot, eventually getting into an agreement at the very end. The clone is also just this perfect being, sort of a Mary Sue. At least it gets destroyed by its own weapon. Also this running gag of hair in Plankton's mouth. Gee, having hair in your mouth is so gross. Squids on a bus. Dang, why is Squidward so mean for the bus driver? It is so unnecessary and teaches a bad lesson, since it is a pretty responsible job and bus drivers do deserve respect. Even if they're late, it means probably something has happened on the road. Anyway, it's rare to see Squidward driving. That's pretty neat. Unfortunately, majority of this episode is just SpongeBob and later Patrick just annoying Squidward, causing a lot of problems, and unfortunately, this time it does get a little frustrating. Even if Squidward deserves something to happen to him because he was mean to the bus driver, SpongeBob and Patrick annoying him is a lazy way to do it. But the episode barely avoids the lower tiers because of the last quarter of the runtime. I really like how they go so deep that the pressure literally crushes everything and everybody. And even the Grim Reaper himself appears as a passenger. That's hardcore. This is what the episode should have been about. Them going to interesting places, not just SpongeBob and Patrick being annoying. So yeah, it is a low B tier. Also, this nighttime filter is so awful. It feels like an afterthought just to create that joke. And they made it so badly. The nighttime should have really been on the outside of the bus, not the inside. The inside should have been lit by the lights in the bus or something. This is how it should have looked like. Shoutouts to Bansi. This dude and his art skills are just incredible. Sandy's naughty nieces. Oh boy, annoying kids. Don't you love when your little cousins or nieces or nephews come to visit? Me neither. Hey, I just realized, This episode's plot is kind of archaic now, since nowadays all kids would have been on their phones. So yeah, this episode is really unrealistic. Nah, I'm obviously exaggerating. We have this episode about 3 children in a season where the animation and humor is still expressive and loud. Yeah, what can go wrong? Well, surprisingly, not everything. I was honestly kinda shocked to see that Sandy's nieces are not that obnoxious. I was originally so worried that this episode would be just nothing but annoyance and being so loud, but it isn't really. Honestly, my biggest problem with those nieces are just their high-pitched voices. Yeah, at this point we've been kinda influenced by the media that little chipmunks should have annoying voices. Them painting the Krusty crew with all these condiments was kinda funny, and their fight with Patrick was kinda justified. And Patrick ultimately wins, which I appreciate. So yeah, I am a bit stumped. What should I rate this episode? It isn't as bad as one might think, but on the other hand, it's just a stock plot. Taking care of little family members which are mischievous, yeah, it's B tier. Also, there's so much burping here, which is gross. Insecurity guards. This episode also kind of feels basic, but at least it takes place in an interesting location, as the visits in the museum are pretty rare in the show. One thing I really appreciate is how SpongeBob and Patrick don't really annoy anybody, or Squidward even, and just mess with the exhibits on their own, and actually doing sort of a good job at being the guards. That art critic catapulting Squidward's painting was pretty funny, same with SpongeBob's evolution, or Patrick wanting the Wally mollusk statue to do something. Honestly, there isn't really more to say about this episode. From start to finish, it's just a pretty neat watch. There's some amusing shenanigans, it's not too loud or anything, sounds like a pretty harmless A tier. I also really like how you get underwater versions of some of the most famous paintings. Squidward's and the robber subplots are pretty funny too. Yeah, this episode is just a nice watch. Broken alarm. Whoa, we are starting at a very crazy note here. Krabs just randomly assuming SpongeBob is dead, and everybody going to his house to see his possible remains. It's hardcore and I love it. And overall, this entire episode is a really great idea. Even if we've already seen SpongeBob's clock not working properly or him being late to work, I'm enjoying pretty much every scene in this episode. From SpongeBob trying out all these different clocks, to him constantly being late anyways, to the giant Rube Goldberg machine towards the very ending. It's all encompassed with a great looking animation. Sort of what I said about One Trick Sponge being longer. So yeah, this episode is an easy S tier. I also appreciate how SpongeBob says his clock means a lot to him. And so nice for Patrick for trying to fix it for SpongeBob. Yeah, this episode is visually very amazing, and we literally have a journey along with SpongeBob. There's nothing really to dislike. Also, fun fact, the guest editor for this episode, Eagle Plum, used one of my old rips of SpongeBob theme 2 in this episode. So yeah, I kind of made it to the show. That's crazy. Karen's baby. Maybe a better idea would be Plankton's baby, maybe? Oh, that was kinda unexpected, but I guess it's a natural progression of Karen's and Plankton's plots. We've been through a lot of their relationships, more or less melodramatic. Now this is the first time they get their own baby. Usually, up to this point, they only cared about other babies. The small calculator baby reminds me of Baby Karen from Goo Goo Gas, probably a reference, and I find it really hilarious how Plankton is all repulsive towards the child and even brings up some of the stereotypes, like, oh boy, here comes the crying. In general, there's plenty of computer-related humor, like upside-down numbers make words. It was really funny when Plankton said it cannot get any more annoying, and then SpongeBob just jumps right in, and there's an applause even. In general, I think this can be an A tier episode. I like how Chip gets an upgrade every so often and has its own little story about rebellion, and I really like how Plankton finally accepts him and comes to the rescue. The whole fight they had with those shady robots was kinda awesome. This episode is not spectacular or anything, but they executed the idea of a computer baby pretty decently. Also, the last gag of annoying Mr. Krabs as an ATM machine was really hilarious. It fits so well. Shell games. Right off the bat, I need to address a huge elephant. A huge elephant in the room. Patrick's rock was obviously never a turtle shell. We've seen it countless of times, it was only a rock. This is the only time when it's revealed a turtle has been living here. Remember, in SpongeBob the continuity, it never really matters. We should not be thinking seriously about Patrick's rock suddenly becoming a house to somebody, and that somebody, Tony, I gotta say, I really like his character. He is just this cool dude that will be fun to hang around with. Also, he's more of a land tortoise than a sea turtle, but that's just a minor nitpick. His house is full of really cool references to famous bands from the 70s and the 80s. I just love that. And I also like how constantly they mention how long he slept. So it roughly matches the duration of the show's runtime, and his dynamic with Patrick is just awesome. It works so well. I love the gradual tension rising between them, and how Patrick is just called a parasite. Even their full-on fight towards the end of the episode and how they fly across the city is really cool. No wonder this is an S tier episode. It is just awesome. Great dynamics, humor, everything really. Senior discount. Well, I would never expect myself to like an episode that is centered around Old Man Jenkins. Like I said, he's among one of my least favorite characters in the show, but I gotta say, this is an awesome episode. It's like they were aware of Old Man Jenkins being an annoying character and just went with it. Yeah, they didn't make it in a true annoying way. Instead, it is all very much just stupid kind of humor, which I'm a big fan of. Obviously, they are portraying stereotypes of old people, exaggerating them. Old Man Jenkins is also kinda right, senior discount is a thing in real life, and yes, you should respect older people. Side note, it is true, however, just because people are older doesn't mean they're always right. I absolutely love the dynamics between Old Man Jenkins and Krabs in this episode. I like all the ways Krabs tries to get rid of him and Old Man Jenkins just resisting all of them. Krabs straight up assaulting Jenkins in front of the people. It's hilarious when he realizes that's wrong. The episode is an easy S tier, and I haven't even mentioned my favorite part of the episode, when they just bring up all of their fathers and grandfathers. Although, why is Grandpappy the Pirate pale red here? But the most ridiculous part is them just summoning all the ghosts and ancestors. Yeah, this episode is full of correctly made stupid humor. It also might be my favorite of the season, but it's too early to say that. Also, the very end at the chum bucket was a perfect way to end this episode. Mind the gap. Hey, would you look at that? From all the episodes, they decided to revisit the Splinter with how Squidward tried to trick SpongeBob. And I guess they just applied the modernity to this idea. And yeah, this time, they made a really great job. SpongeBob's teeth gap is almost just as famous as his clock in Broken Alarm. So the most interesting things happen when the most famous things are gone. I just really love where they went with this episode. It's pretty much all just a musical, but we can still chill out with the jazzy music. This episode easily goes to the S tier. Why do they only now call SpongeBob cool? Hasn't he always been cool? I like all the ways Squidward tried to combine SpongeBob's teeth together. Overall, just really nice to see them having a good time together and just getting along. It's also funny how all the people at the bar just dislike Squidward. And it's also sort of a nighttime episode. So yeah, this whole episode is just a really cool watch and listen. Dirty Bubble returns, and another awesome episode. I just cannot stress enough how everything just works and clicks together. Dirty Bubble literally becoming clean and has to avoid all of the literal dirt in order to stay, well, clean. Him getting a job as a dishwasher is really funny and makes sense. And it's cute how he teams up with SpongeBob, and essentially it's all a rehab for Dirty Bubble. I actually kind of feel bad for him when Mr. Krabs gives him the dirtiest jobs. I think the explanation why it's so easy to clean him up is because the dirt is fresh in this episode, and then when he absorbs a lot of the dirt, it's much more difficult, so this is why prisons are needed. Because yeah, I was wondering, why is it so easy to just clean him up? Couldn't they have done that earlier? This is another S tier episode. I love the comic book style they used here, and not to mention, we finally get an episode fully dedicated to Dirty Bubble. I love the rampage he goes on, cleaning everything in the process. The climax fight is so awesome. We see the return of SpongeBob's cleaning powers, which is really neat, and SpongeBob briefly pretending to be evil is just a cherry on top. So many great things about this episode. Also a small nitpick, I kinda wish he was fully transparent throughout the episode. He is transparent when he's clean, why isn't he transparent when he's dirty? He always was. This makes the scene when SpongeBob is inside him look a bit weird. Jolly Lodgers. Man, one thing I noticed compared to season 11 is how inconsistent season 12 is. This season started fairly strong, like a continuation to season 11, then the early to mid episodes were kinda meh, then we've got some of the best episodes of the season and perhaps maybe even the whole show, and now we're back to just annoying Squidward and being loud. We've really had it here in this season with Pineapple RV and Squids on a bus. In season 11, what annoying Squidward did we have? The beginning of Man Ray Returns maybe? Kinda? Bunny Hunt, perhaps? Alright, Ink Lemonade, but that was just mostly Patrick, and the whole thing was more like a parody, or like doing it artistically or something. Like, I guess Ink Lemonade doesn't really count, it's its own thing. But I think overall in season 11 that was handled much better than here. This season is sadly a worrying downgrade on that front. At least SpongeBob's and Patrick's presence is somewhat justified by the jellyfish convention. Most of the episode is sadly just being loud and annoying, just for the sake of it. Even the shark receptionist kind of bothers me. I guess the reference to The Shining is kinda cool, and Squidward slowly losing his mind. The last third third of the episode with the actual jellyfish convention gets much better. We get plenty of references to the older episodes, like I'm your biggest fanatic. That's always a treat. Sadly, this episode will go to the C tier. It just barely avoids D tier because the ending chase was pretty awesome. Squidward sort of gets his revenge by just zapping everybody. That was really cool and justified. Sadly, we need to watch the entire episode just to get to that point. Babysitting. I was just thinking that babysitting would not be something I would see in SpongeBob. But then I was thinking about it and I thought of Goo Goo Gas and just the general fondness SpongeBob has for baby animals. And I reconsidered. Yeah, babysitting is something he would totally try. I guess the montage of SpongeBob and Patrick taking care of children is kind of amusing. And shockingly, they do a good job. And then we have a grand return of Mary and her mom from Chocolate with Nuts. Actually, now I'm seeing the parallels between the two episodes. SpongeBob and Patrick starting their business, but then we get the modern twist to the idea. It's amusing when they get tricked into being in the jail and then jailbreaking. I'm not a fan of their obliviousness at first towards her. It gets a little bit better once they learn she's not a baby. But as always, in a cartoon, she's a grandma who's into extreme stuff. Kinda cliche. This episode will go to the B tier. Truth is, I don't really care too much about it. Everything that happens is just alright. And the concept of babysitting as a whole is not really that interesting. Also, we get a really nice close-up of old people spitting. Yeah, that was really necessary. SpongeBob's Big Birthday Blowout. It is the 20th anniversary of SpongeBob, and we are celebrating it with a big special, a 40-minute TV movie, just like Truth or Square was for the 10th anniversary. And yeah, big specials are always an awesome way of celebrating big milestones. First off, I gotta say, I love how the music Another Best Day Ever is being used as the title card, since it is a great day for them. Although I'm not really a fan how we are flying over some neighborhood in the opening credits, wouldn't something like a beach be better? And hey, Patchy is back! His scenes are always so awesome. Meanwhile, underwater, we are off to a hilarious start. And yeah, I honestly think Patrick's scene at SpongeBob door is the peak funny stupidity. Overall, I'm a fan of the premise, the main cast trying to make a big birthday party while SpongeBob is away, and what a journey he has. Going to the surface? I'm all for it. Rube Goldfish returns for a major role, and honestly, he is perfect for this. As we have already established last time, he is some sort of a supernatural being. And even the French narrator from Pharaoh Friends is back. And even David Hasselhoff? Yeah, this movie definitely starts with tons of hype. Next up, we land at the beach party, and honestly, I'm not really a fan. I don't really care too much for what happens here. Honestly, I think it's pretty awkward when real-life people try to act so cartoonish with the hyper energy from 2D SpongeBob episodes. Yeah, this whole special is an episode that's overall really expressive and loud. From the entire beans part, Patrick wanting some of the beans for himself was probably the most amusing, and the scene when they are all dried out takes a little too long for me. Going back underwater, it gets much better. The main cast arguing for the best theme for SpongeBob's party, although why didn't they just plan ahead? Yeah, they didn't even need to argue. Just take bits from everybody's idea. Their fighting is kinda unnecessary. They got much better in Home Sweet Rubble. Alright, at least it is funny, I guess. We are back to SpongeBob, and by the way, I don't know if you noticed, but for the wide shots, they use a practical effect aquarium with models of SpongeBob and other characters. The scene with the dog in the park is okay, and how is Patchy not seeing the aquarium? Cutting back to SpongeBob's house, and oh my goodness, we get so many cameos of old characters. How awesome is that? I absolutely adore the homage to this series with this special. And even a new character is introduced with Slappy. He'll become a recurring character later on. And hey, the party actually got started, and honestly, it looks pretty nice. However, when we cut back to SpongeBob, we are now in my least favorite live action segment. At the business office, I guess they took the term concrete jungle a bit too seriously, all of them having the gorilla masks and then acting like gorillas. I had a really hard time finding this amusing, but I can kind of see how others might think this is funny. At least all the real life stuff don't really take that much screen time, especially the business one. Also, holy Jesus, this is nightmare fuel. But then we probably get to the most awesome thing they could come up with. All the voice actors portraying their characters in real life, with this whole recreation of the Krusty Krab. I always love when a cartoon goes full meta humor like this. And also a nice little reference to SpongeBob sometimes being mistaken as cheese, only to be actually used like cheese here. Yeah, this whole part at the Trusty Slab is epic. The last place we visit in the real life segment is the aquarium shop. This is less epic, and there's this really weird scene where Patrick wants to kiss a fish. However, it is awesome how they decided to rescue the fish and take them with them. And gee, more nightmare fuel. We get back underwater where the party is sadly over. It is the very ending that truly sells the whole thing. SpongeBob gets back home and it's just so adorable. And throughout the whole episode, Patrick had his own little story. Feels exactly like all the shenanigans from old episodes. But finally, after all these years, he finally gets his wish. Meeting SpongeBob in person, the whole 20 years led to this point. I love this ending so much. And then we finally get the happy birthday song. All the celebrities and crew members wishing SpongeBob happy birthday. Come on guys, no matter how many things are jarring here, or to me personally, or to you even, this is an S-tier episode. The idea of the tour in the surface world is awesome. All the characters preparing a huge party was great. Now, maybe I am just older and grumpier, but me as a kid would absolutely love every second of the special. It is truly an awesome anniversary special all throughout. SpongeBob in Random Land. I thought most of SpongeBob episodes have been random. Hey, I again got my wish from One Trick Sponge. A whole episode full of crazy animations. This is probably the most modern reimagination of pizza delivery there could be. In general, it's pretty clear that this episode is purely a brain fryer, not to be taken seriously. You just need to chill out and not ask too many questions. Just let everything in. There are so many things happening here and so many background details. I'll be sitting here for ages trying to say, I like this, I like that for everything here. So I'm just gonna wrap all of this up into saying the whole Random Land is awesome. Visually amazing, really clever and very funny. And nothing here really feels forced. I like the upside down house and how they say there are no downsides to it.
This episode is one of the best examples of modernity in modern seasons.
And even the Krabby Crust from Lost in Bikini Bottom is mentioned. That's cool. This is obviously an S-tier episode. I really love how it's implied at the very beginning that in order to go to the Random Land, you just need to do a lot of random things, sort of like the backrooms. And also the elephant in the room. The censorship in this episode. Up until now, there have been some censorships in season 12, but I really didn't care about them. This, however, they made such an awesome jump scare. The reference to the old creepypasta, but it was deemed too scary for children. That's lame. There were so many things in SpongeBob that could have been considered too scary. And besides, a lot of the children are now browsing the internet unsupervised, being exposed to real scary stuff. Now this is a problem. This is why I would like to say big thanks to today's sponsor, NordVPN. Nah, I'm just kidding. SpongeBob's Bad Habit. No, I'm just kidding, I'm not gonna do this. But I gotta say, it's only okay when I do this. When someone else bites their nails, it's super gross. In fact, this episode is kinda gross. We start off with fingernails in people's food and drinks, and even on people. Seriously, at some parts, I literally had to just cover my eyes. One thing for sure, they really did a great job setting up the problem for this episode. I know that in previous videos I've been saying that I'm a huge fan of gross out humor, and that's true. However, if your mouth and saliva gets involved, then I have a problem. But okay, the beginning scene at the restaurant is fairly short and I can kind of see the funny here. And throughout the episode, the animation of SpongeBob biting his nails is not that gross or anything. You know what? This episode grew up on me as it was going on. I really did find a lot of things here amusing. SpongeBob struggled to keep himself from biting, and then the full-on psycho kicked in. A lot of humor they wrote here is pretty fun. I really like how Patrick and Sandy try to keep SpongeBob restrained, and the hypnosis doctor is the famous SpongeBob hand. How cool is that? Surprisingly, I think this episode will go to the S tier. I love how it goes full circle for Squidward. At the beginning, he was complaining about his job, and this is what affected SpongeBob. That's so clever. Although I'm not a fan how ultimately the hypnosis was just a fake out and it did not cure SpongeBob. A bit of a lame part at the end. Handemonium. Whoa, we just had a lot of hands. Now this is the second episode in a row dedicated to hands, and it's also one of those 16-minute extended runtime episodes, or as I call them, semi-special. And it's also the second one of 3 of them in this season. And let me tell you, this one is 1,000 times better than the previous one. I love how it all starts in the night, in this little tough guy's arm wrestle club. Plankton gets humiliated in front of everybody and wants his revenge. Now this premise sounds really dope. And we get another instance of something that just been a background element turned into a major plot point. Plankton's glove. And honestly, it's just so hardcore when he just goes back and destroys everybody. And then his immediate rush to the Krusty Krab. Conveniently, the hand disobeys him right before breaking into the secret formula. I love how Plankton gets a little panic attack, saying that he's gonna get blamed for this. In general, I love the overall atmosphere of this episode. And they have a real dangerous monster that needs to be defeated. I love their idea to just make the big glove fall in love. But their next idea is even more awesome. Hans appears again, and this time SpongeBob had to summon him by singing his theme song. Seriously, this is so awesome. I'm having a really good time with this episode. It doesn't even feel 16 minutes. The time goes so fast, but it is surely S tier. It also shouldn't be a surprise that I love the last fight between the glove and the hand. All of this hand humor is really great. The visuals are great. This whole episode is awesome. Breakin'. This little episode is also pretty cool. The joke of Mr. Krabs being a terrible boss now has gone official with the inspector checking if SpongeBob gets any breaks. I love this. Casual view of SpongeBob just enjoying his break and seeing the Krusty Krab from his perspective. And he even whistles his closing theme. That's pretty neat. The little Krusty Krab break room is also pretty neat, and how SpongeBob is exploring it is also just okay. The party he throws is also pretty awesome. Mr. Krabs quickly shutting down the Krusty Krab break room was pretty funny. A tier, I guess? This is a good little story for a short episode. Very harmless. I don't really wanna say fillery. It's more like you can just take a break with this episode. We all sometimes need a break. Boss for a day. I'm a bit split on this episode, mainly because it doesn't feel good for SpongeBob to not be a good boss. Very often he showed he's really good at multitasking and usually liking the more complicated jobs, especially at the Krusty Krab. So I would say it feels out of character. I do like, however, how Mr. Krabs is portrayed as this perfect boss. I'm already set up to put this episode into B tier. SpongeBob not being able to manage Squidward and Patrick is really odd, and they're really getting frustrated with him. Like, Patrick has some genuine emotions here. It's not only played for jokes. And SpongeBob morphing into Mr. Krabs kinda makes Mimic Madness a little less special now. The enjoyable things are just bits here and there, like those tiny SpongeBob slices are kinda amusing, and how SpongeBob art style shifts a little is also pretty neat visually. Yeah, overall it's just middle of the road. The Goofy Newbie. Hey, it's the return of the Goofy Goobers from the first movie in a major role. Being able to just eat as much ice cream as you want feels like a dream come true. No wonder Patrick wants a job there. I like the old film style backstory. Overall, Patrick just doing chores in his own way, aka the way they shouldn't be done. That's kinda amusing. I'm overall enjoying Patrick's shenanigans, not in some spectacular amazing way, but just regular amusing way. Probably because we are just in this new setting. Seeing SpongeBob helping Patrick is also pretty awesome, and also I just love the overall montage of Patrick eating all the ice cream. I especially love how he just froze the entire world for 5 billion years. That's hardcore. And I also love the UFO aspect of the story as well. I just realized there's so many positive things here that it might as well just deserve an S tier. The whole episode just feels positive. All those small bits are just really nice to watch, and combined together just make a pleasant experience. The Ghost of Plankton. This is obviously one of those holiday-themed episodes that aren't necessarily promoted as much. Like, clearly this is a small Halloween episode. And dude, we get such an awesome combo of Plankton and Flying Dutchman. But first things first, the episode kinda has some gruesome humor on top of the usual scary humor. Like Karen literally pulling the plug, or Plankton squeezing the life out of himself. Plankton quickly building a machine off screen was pretty hilarious. And in general, we kinda got similar idea in Perfect Chemistry, although then Plankton was a steam, and here he is a full-on ghost now. Plankton and Flying Dutchman just work so well as a duo. I really enjoy how he teaches Plankton how to be a real ghost, and all of their little adventures around town. How Plankton really is getting into being the poltergeist. Although I'm not really buying how Plankton easily gives up. Only after one try of trying to pick up the secret formula, he could have easily broke the bottle or something. But right after that, we get another awesome scene at the funeral, with Plankton's corpse on the display. And the ending is also pretty neat, how Flying Dutchman tries to scare everybody, but he fails. It is easily an S tier episode. And also a nighttime episode. Yeah, I cannot stress enough how much I like when the entire episode takes place during nighttime. My two Crabsies. Overall, I'm no longer all negative about love and relationship episodes. I'm pretty happy to see how well Mr. Krabs and Mrs. Puff are doing. It's also pretty clever how they all got into this big misunderstanding. Also, it's nice to see Chum Bucket having some success sometimes. I love that little joke of stealing the secret chum formula from Plankton. I also really like how they make this zombie crabs and trying to teach him some basic things. From Mrs. Puff's perspective, the implication of chum crabs being this perfect version of real Mr. Krabs is really funny. But also the real Mr. Krabs caring for Mrs. Puff, trying to protect her from the zombie crabs. It was really awesome and the right thing to do. Squidward randomly showing up and explaining the situation was a bit weird. Overall, I think I can safely put it into A tier. I like how SpongeBob and Patrick take this whole thing seriously. This episode is pretty enjoyable, not too loud or expressive. The plot has been written well and has good pacing. Yeah, compared to some other episodes of the season, this one is pretty calm and toned down. Knock knock. Who's there? It's nice we are getting another episode about house sitting. And Mr. Krabs' house is one of the most interesting ones. I always like when we got entire episode or just some regular scenes at his house. But in all honesty, I kinda find this episode to be just I do like how strongly Mr. Krabs conveys the message to SpongeBob about not opening the door, but he also said not to go inside his bedroom, but SpongeBob does it anyway, and even was checking his private belongings, and even destroying his knot collection. What the heck, man? SpongeBob just literally showed zero respect to Krabs. That's rude. I really love, however, how the acronym for the convention is literally just and how the other person just literally won $1,000. But I'm also not buying how SpongeBob is not able to recognize Mr. Krabs through the peephole. This is the whole point of it. Even if it's distorting a little, you shouldn't be having trouble recognizing everybody. I'm overall not a fan how SpongeBob and Patrick cannot easily recognize Krabs in any of the situations. I do, however, like all the booby traps they set up and how overall they are defending the house. I guess everything balances out to be about a B tier. There's some quick gags here and there, like Mr. Krabs saying SpongeBob is made out of cheese, like a lot of people used to think. I like the little scene when SpongeBob gets scared by the horror movie and what pretty much kickstarts the whole episode. But also we get a really stupid ending when Pearl tries to get inside the house, only for everybody not to believe her. Pat Hearts Squid. Is this a little reference to I Heart Dancing? Because it was confusing how to read it. Is it love or heart? This time they specified it is heart. I find it funny how Squidward's house just collapses. We usually see it being destroyed at the end of episodes, so we can finally see what happens when it gets destroyed at the beginning of the episode. I gotta say, I absolutely love Squidward's and Patrick's dynamics here. Last time we've seen them getting along was a banger, and they made it awesome this time too. I really love how Patrick has no problem accommodating Squidward to his house, and Patrick just rolling with Squidward redecorating. I can already say it's an S tier episode. The fusion of their houses looks great. The little montage of Patrick transforming into Squidward is fun, and was especially funny when they just completely switched the roles and became themselves. Yeah, this is a very simple yet very enjoyable episode. Unfortunately though, this is where we need to take a moment of silence for Seaweed and Gator. As of today, of me scripting this, recording this, and editing this, this is the last episode where those two tracks appear. Two of the most famous, iconic, and beloved tracks. After this episode, gone. Many years, many seasons, hundreds of episodes later, they still haven't returned. Most likely because they just don't fit the modern style of SpongeBob. I can understand that. They were played so often that they deserve their retirement. Lighthouse Louie. Season 12 keeps on giving with all the well-established background elements turning into major plot points. This time being the lighthouse from Mrs. Puff boarding school. We finally get to explore the interior a little bit, and that's awesome. I really like how Mrs. Puff said she's been tossing stuff there for 20 years, which at the time was roughly how long the show has been going on. I also really enjoy the whole sequence of SpongeBob cleaning up the mess. I also find SpongeBob thinking everything is haunted to be funny, even his toaster. Louie is really adorable. She's been all alone there, now has someone to play with. Yeah, I really enjoy how Louie is messing with SpongeBob. And hey, a Popeye reference. That's so cool. I was initially confused why Louie all of a sudden was all angry towards SpongeBob, but later we find out she's been just protecting her kids. But that gives us this awesome rampage of the lighthouse just destroying everything. Honestly, this is another episode that is pretty simple, yet has a lot of things that are very enjoyable here. So maybe it does deserve a low S tier. Larry and others being scared of those alleged monsters was really hilarious. The little snails are adorable. And I also love when sometimes SpongeBob does not destroy any of Mrs. Puff's belongings. And actually, he made some good deeds. Well, yeah, he indirectly caused a lot of damage, but I love how Mrs. Puff just shrugs it off with some rock music. Hiccup plague. I really love the opening of this one. Just some random kids causing a disaster, and we see the side effects of it. Somehow it makes sense that two little kids just would make some mischief and go unnoticed. I like the visualization of the hiccup bubble and just the general effects all the hiccups have on the main characters. All those scenes are just fine, enjoyable and amusing. The 0 days without nonsense joke is pretty hilarious, although I'm kinda shocked they managed to go entire 2 days without nonsense. In SpongeBob universe, this is unrealistic. Bubble Bus turning inside out was pretty hardcore. Overall, I think this can be an A-tier episode. The whole thing is pretty energetic. All the characters and their side effects of hiccups are pretty funny. I really appreciate how SpongeBob takes it upon himself and wants to isolate from everybody, which means I also like the ending when everybody wants to cure him with their own silly little ideas. This episode is pretty enjoyable, although I can understand why some people might think this is uncomfortable. For example, I had the hiccup feeling the entire time, and it's nice to see the kids getting punished for their actions with their own weapon. A cabin in the kelp. Hey, the Galpas from Girls Night Out are back, and they even got a new member in Pearl. As I said many times now, sometimes it is nice to see an episode entirely or mostly from someone else's perspective. Maybe I do owe an apology to season 6 of Adventure Time. The gang splits up and SpongeBob gets his small subplot, which is okay. The girls also have some nice good time together. Redecorating the small cabin was pretty cool, and given how this is a parody of a horror in the woods, there's gotta be some campfire story that turns out to be true. Oh yeah, the woods themselves also look pretty awesome, especially at night. I think this will go to a B tier though, because ultimately I don't really care that much about this episode and what happens here. The story is just another horror parody, and the whole episode is kind of just chaotic as well. Although I do like the fake out ending when they thought the sales lady was the danger and the real former Galpal shows up, and turns out she's just a regular lady who even has forgiven them. The hankering. I know that continuity is not really a thing in SpongeBob, but I think this episode stretches it a little too much with Krabs suddenly liking chum. There's been a few episodes where he ate chum and wasn't really that disgusted. Maybe the ending of the Krusty Slammer initiated it, or maybe he had this secret the whole series. Well, I think all of us get hungry for something random sometimes. Anyway, I'm probably looking way too deep into this one. I think it is very ironic and hilarious how Mr. Krabs suddenly loves chum and wants to keep it a secret, especially from Plankton. Also really convenient that the chum chef closes his business. I like the little backstory Krabs gives us. And whoa, is this Aloha? It last played in season 4, over 14 years prior. I gotta say, one of the things season 12 does fantastically is the music. So many older stuff just returns back and plays regularly. Also, Aloha in general starts playing more in future seasons, but I digress. Chum-free chum is a hilarious analogy to the meat-free meat. I like the scene when SpongeBob tried to make the substitute. This episode kinda reminds me of Plankton's paranoia. In fact, it's gonna get the same rating. S tier. Yeah, the chum is made as a bait for fish in real life, so overall I'm surprised more people don't eat it. I love how SpongeBob actively tries to stop Krabs from making a big mistake. SpongeBob is really supportive here and I appreciate it. The brief fight of Plankton and Krabs is really cool, and the very ending was also pretty awesome with how SpongeBob is motivating Mr. Krabs. And Krabs also defeating all the problems, including his hunger for chum. Who are Zoo? Whoa, I'm actually really shocked by this episode. In a positive way, because we have real emotions here. It is so rare now when you get something that isn't just played for jokes, but instead it's played seriously. The zookeeper genuinely being mad at SpongeBob, telling him to get out, and SpongeBob genuinely crying over the situation. I feel like as the show goes on, we get less and less serious situations like this. Everything must be played as a joke nowadays. This is something that's really missing from the modern seasons. The whole opening is just adorable, SpongeBob playing with all those animals, and the animals loving him in return. It is so cute to see the animals trying to protect SpongeBob from the zookeeper, and the animals themselves are some of the new ones, being just interpretations of the real land animals as sea creatures. And I'm even shocked how Patrick is supportive. They are doing so many things right here. Making everything out of bubbles is such a classic move, I appreciate that. The extra strength bubble soap is both funny and clever. I love how SpongeBob gives a little explanation for every animal. The humor this episode is just generally really nice. How can you not put this episode into the highest tier? I also really like the second part of the episode where Scooter just causes chaos, pops all the enclosures, and all the bubble animals just start a rampage. And also the episode goes full circle for the zoo animals when they come to the rescue for SpongeBob. And it's also really nice at the end when they get into the agreement with the zookeeper, and I like how each bubble animal has a corresponding real animal from the zoo. It is just a really well made episode. Quarantined Crab. I love when the main cast just does stuff together. There is something really nice to just see them casually interacting. I guess we don't have Sandy, but Pearl and Mrs. Puff are here. And another thing I really like are the diseases and quarantines plots. And this episode does them hilariously. I love how Mr. Krabs mentions that he already bribed the health inspector this year, and how Plankton gets immediately incinerated once he escapes, and even Pearl straight up mentions death. Yeah, maybe we should have some more characters this episode, like some customers inside the Krusty Krab, but otherwise they wouldn't do the humor we already have here. So throughout the episode, there's this increasing paranoia about everybody being sick and having to lock them up. I love when there's paranoia in these episodes, especially when Mr. Krabs is the one very paranoid. Obviously, it turns out there was no disease and everybody's suspecting themselves for every little thing. I think it was really adorable and noble for SpongeBob for wanting to isolate himself, and Patrick wanted to join in just because he wants some ice cream. Also love how they team up together and have this big fight against Mr. Krabs, this episode is easily S tier. Yeah, the overall idea might not be the most original, there was no disease and it was all a misunderstanding, only to make everything look very serious at the very end. But it was all pretty fun. As I said, I love the whole montage of them making the situation worse and having that big fight. I also love how they all just look messed up at the very ending, and the health inspector apparently holding his device upside down, and the cherry on top at the very ending, throwing everything away into the chum bucket. Plankton's intern. Although this isn't the first time we see other people working for Plankton, I have no problems with old ideas being reimagined into these modern takes. Especially when we get a rare character interaction, and that is Plankton and Pearl. They finally get along, much better than the last time, and I actually like their dynamics quite a lot here. Seeing all of Plankton's inventions just fail and Pearl having to clean everything up was quite amusing. It's also really hilarious when initially Krabs doesn't know that Plankton is Pearl's boss, and Plankton doesn't know that Pearl is Krabs' daughter. I really enjoy how they break to the Krusty Krab and try to steal the formula. SpongeBob appears out of nowhere at the Krusty Krab at night, as he usually does, just to mess up with Plankton's plans. I think it's a solid A tier episode. At the very end, it's still just Plankton trying to take the formula, just this time it's a different character. But nonetheless, overall, there's plenty of amusing things. Patrick's tantrum. Mr. Krabs' idea of using the bell at all is kinda random and a bit disturbing. I'm pretty sure he doesn't need any Pavlov's dog experiments on his customers just to convince them to buy more Krabby Patties. It's like McDonald's, it's very well established and all. And in real life, it would quickly get annoying. I love the random Ringo Starr reference and how one of the customers calls Krab Quasimodo. This is the episodic nature of the show. Patrick has never shown any tantrums whenever he heard a bell. Otherwise, every Christmas would have been a nightmare, or every time the cash register is used. I do love how SpongeBob goes on a little campaign to destroy every bell in town, and Mr. Krab asking him how he suddenly got so strong. Yeah, I love the little bell destroying montage and how Mr. Krabs wants to use Patrick's tantrums for his monetary gains. I think it's also a pretty neat A tier episode. Also, I guess we kinda have an elephant in the room again, Patrick's OG parents, or should I say, the original designs of them. Yeah, now that we have the Patrick Star Show, they kind of just been replaced entirely, and honestly that's for the better. Now the new ones are the normal ones. The OG parents really just appear in 2 episodes for like a couple of seconds in total. Having them being replaced by new designs is really not that big of a deal. Meanwhile, the new ones have an entire new show and many seasons and whatnot. Not to mention, the Patrick Star Show is overall a great cartoon, and you should absolutely watch it. Characters and all episodes are great, the jokes are really funny, the visuals are amazing. Seriously, if you haven't, go check it out. Camp Coral is just meh, but Patrick Star Show, goated. Bubble Bass's tab. In general, nice callback to Bubble Bass always having ridiculous looking and sounding odors and causing commotion at the Krusty Krab. You know it's serious when even Mr. Krabs is fighting with him, and Bubble Bass, as always, tries to avoid responsibility. So yeah, in this episode we get more world building of Bubble Bass's house and his basement. I am a fan of it. We get to the depths of Bubble Bass's cellar, and I like how it's all made to look like all these board games, and you need to use your imagination to kind of play them in real life. Gee, I wish I could do that with my friends. It was also really funny when Bubble Bass's mom charged and attacked them, and his fight with Squidward was really neat too. I also appreciate how Bubble Bass needs to work his way out of the debt. Honestly, I'm thinking about this. Could this be an S tier episode? Bubble Bass is overall a hilarious character. I love the aesthetic of his basement, having so many props made out of cardboard to resemble board games, which themselves are based on Middle Ages. Yeah, maybe it does actually deserve a low S tier. Not all S tiers are equal. Sometimes it is really difficult to decide. Should it be high A tier or low S tier? While a lot of things are subjective, in general, I still wanna keep things objective and shed positive light on stuff. Cookie Cooks. It honestly just feels like a direct continuation to my 2 Crabsies. It's still nighttime and maybe they just went home, changed their clothes and came back here. As it usually is at the fancy restaurants, everything is expensive and Mr. Krabs doesn't want to pay for anything. Him failing to sabotage the waiter was really funny. And look, we even get more serious emotions between characters. Yeah, Mr. Krabs being greedy ruined the date, but this leads to a really cool plot point when they need to go to Mr. Krabs' house and cook some delicious meals in his kitchen. And I really love this idea. Honestly, this episode kinda makes me hungry for some fancy restaurant, but it is no surprise that everything they do in a kitchen turns out to be disastrous, having to recall every single thing they made, and I'm not buying how all of a sudden SpongeBob cannot cook again, but at least they get into a neat food fight, which hilariously also made SpongeBob into a meal. The scene with everybody trying to prevent Mrs. Puff from eating SpongeBob was pretty fun and energetic, and I can understand Mrs. Puff. She was all hungry and just fed up with waiting. And whoa, she actually had to have him surgically removed. And I appreciate how, at the end, they all just ate at the Krusty Krab. Although, I'm not a fan how Mrs. Puff suddenly wanted to eat SpongeBob again at the very end. So overall, Another low S tier? It's nighttime and we are in Mr. Krabs' house again, and the plot is really cool. It's an overall enjoyable episode, so I guess that's fair. Escape from Beneath Glove World. This is an interesting premise to make a special episode out of. We previously had episodes that solely took place in Glove World, so it is a very well-known location. And now we are exploring even more of it, all the undergrounds and stuff. It's so cool. First things first, I noticed how in this episode Glove World is not your typical little amusement park. Instead, they made it more like an actual Disneyland. I don't have a problem with this, although I have a question. What was the Glove Universe for? That was never used. This episode feels like it could have taken place in Glove Universe. I like how it's implied from the very beginning that Hieronymus Glove is a robot and the real one was cryogenically frozen. It's also really funny how Patrick is shown in front of the people with the robot's head snapped off, and yeah, it makes sense they would be put in some sort of a jail after destroying property of the park. Also, all these children being in the jail for all those silly reasons was pretty funny too. Also, a little cliche of how the jailbreak is usually so easy. Then we get another tour of the undergrounds, where they just test stuff, or the whole sock world thing was really hilarious. The plot is mainly being driven by the little kid running around. I'm neutral towards him, but I think he's a little creepy with that blank stare. I also like how throughout this episode, the robot Hieronymus seeks revenge on Patrick. He's based on a shark, so that makes sense. It was also really amusing how Patrick just takes his head off so casually, because yeah, he can just do that. We even saw it earlier this season. And their head swap fight was pretty funny too. Honestly, I think this can go to a high A tier. We are exploring the undergrounds and the whole Glove World system. This is a really cool adventure overall, and in general, this is a special episode about Glove World. It's not like it's spectacularly amazing. It's just really cool. This is just like most of season 12 episodes. This is how can I summarize them. They're like cool. They're like okay, not amazing. So I guess this time the high A tier, low S tier debate can be solved by putting this into A tier, just to balance out the other. Krusty Concessionaires. It is the third time, and oddly enough, the last time we're gonna end the season with something more special. A 16-minute episode followed by a shorter one. And also, even more oddly enough, this happens for the third time this season too. Yeah, as I said already, I really like how a season is ended by something more special, just to indicate it is a grand finish. And this is such a cool episode. We are leading up to a big concert that actually even plays in the episode. Mr. Krabs trying to cash in was a very clever implementation of them. Squidward trying to get his moment was so adorable too. The jokes are also really funny, like Squidward telling the fans that the bodyguard is a member of the band, or how Patrick thinks he has his own room just because there's a star on the door. Mr. Krabs constantly failing his scheme is honestly something he deserves. Everybody has their own cool little story. And then the concert actually starts, and the song is legit a bop. Also, it's called Feeding Frenzy, while SpongeBob is feeding everybody Krabby Patties. It is no wonder that this is one of the most deserved S tiers this season. And the very ending was so awesome too. Everybody wins. Mr. Krabs initially discourages everybody from eating Krabby Patties. Squidward scares everyone away. But then they start their own little concert and they succeed. And it sounds pretty neat. And Squidward, who, by the way, stole the clarinet, played pretty well. And everybody just loved them. Isn't it cool? And even the actual band members loved Squidward. This is just a big win. Having this big concert is honestly a really nice way to conclude the season. And it's night time. Honestly, I feel like this is appropriate for season 12. Also, I said in Pat Hard Squid that this episode was the last one where Gator and Seaweed play. Well, this episode is the very last one where any of Steve Belfer's tracks play. With that being stupid plan. Well, I guess besides closing theme which plays at the end of every episode. Dream Hoppus. Whoa, a direct continuation to the previous one. That's so awesome. And I also guess it's like Sleepy Time 2.0? Modern take of it, of course. I guess, yeah, when you go to sleep very tired after a party, you do have some crazy dreams. And this is just kind of that. We get a lot of sequences of SpongeBob's, Patrick's and Squidward's dreams, all of them beautifully animated. And they are also kind of portrayed like the old silent cartoons with just music. Yeah, the music here really delivers. I guess it's also another episode of me wanting One Trick Sponge to be something more. This season really gave me my wish. Yeah, I guess that's pretty much it. It is a very nice little episode, obviously made just for relaxation and enjoying the visuals. It's a very high A tier in my opinion. It's a very nice way to conclude the season. I enjoyed the little sequence of SpongeBob's plane destroying others' dreams. Squidward's visuals being referenced to cubism is pretty neat. Yeah, it's very enjoyable and just peaceful. Yeah, it was all just a dream. Dang, I just had this beautiful dream. My season 12 video was finally finished and uploaded. And it got 1 million views. And my channel is nearly at 100,000 subscribers. How can I achieve it in real life? Maybe I could ask my viewers to subscribe to my channel and like this video and follow me on social media. Dang. It's probably not gonna happen. Well, I guess it's back to dreaming. Hello? Right. Season 12's conclusion. Let's take a look at some numbers. There is 48 segments this season, which means the maximum amount of points was 240. We have nearly half, because 21 episodes in S tier, which is 105 points, 17 episodes in A tier, so 68 points, 8 episodes in B tier, which gives 24 points, and just 2 episodes in C tier. Quick reminder, those C tier episodes were at the verge of being D tier. Also, a side note, there secretly is an F tier, which would truly give 0 points, but it remains unused since I don't think any SpongeBob episode truly would deserve it. Even quote-unquote the worst episodes of the show still deserve at least 1 point. Well, simply because every episode has an entire production team behind it and everybody puts some effort to them, and in general all the opinions about episodes are subjective. I've said it many times, but it is okay to disagree on something. Reminder that I'm not some definitive authority, but I digress. Season 12's score is 201 points, which is 83.7%. So it is a solid A tier. And looking at all the charts and all the numbers, I guess this is just how SpongeBob is really. Not a significant diversion from the rest of the series. And even presenting it on a chart like this, it shows pretty clearly that SpongeBob is very far from being at the absolute bottom. And looking at a chart of all episodes up to this point, it is still a very high A tier cartoon. But make no mistake, compared to season 11, it is a downgrade. By the way, I should mention that the more we go to the past with my reviews, the more I start to disagree with my own opinions. There's so many things I could have said differently, so the more older my ratings are, the more we should take them with a grain of salt. Like, I should completely make just new videos about seasons 1, 2 and 3, and then seasons 4, 5, 8, 9 and 10 should also get an upgrade. Because season 9 had the split and season 10 was so short, I think it makes sense to only compare season 11 and season 12 now. Season 11 was pretty consistent and awesome throughout. Season 12 on the other hand, yep, a pretty noticeable downgrade. And this time there will be no bumping up any of the scores. As you can see from the ratings, the first half of the season was just okay. There's many A and B tiers. It really took until the second half when the season really takes off. It's like the season has some clear eras here. Like, also has a noticeable split. A clear distinction between the two halves. Well, the season still continues to be energetic, having a ton of references and cool animations, but overall it feels like they didn't do such an amazing work like the previous season did. It feels like on average they put way less creativity here. Sometimes the pacing feels odd, but most importantly, there's been some character changes too. It kinda just feels more disappointing than frustrating. Don't get me wrong, there's still plenty of fantastic episodes. But then we get some episodes that are just loud and annoying. There's some scenes that have true emotions, and then other times, characters are just not themselves. I also notice a worrying increase of gross out and toilet humor. For example, the chum is really apparent this season. I also noticed there's plenty of episodes where SpongeBob has a smaller role. Not a complaint or anything. I think it's kinda cool when other characters get some more screen time. And that pretty much covers everything I wanted to say about season 12. Sadly, I need to say that calling it inconsistent and a downgrade is pretty valid. But hey, I'm not saying it's bad. You can still have good time with some of the episodes. I would say give it a watch sometimes. But honestly, I wouldn't really recommend it like I did with season 11. That's all from me for today. I'm really excited for season 13, honestly. See you guys in the next video and good night. While I'm glad this isn't one of those fairy tales episode, this whole thing could have worked without her. Ja nie powiem lepiej without her.
Powiedzieć dobrze.
Nie, tego się nie da dobrze powiedzieć. Albo hurt her. Hurt her. Tego się nie da powiedzieć. Hurt her. Tego się nie da powiedzieć. Hurt her. You know what? You know what? I thought this would be a B tier episode. Wow. That joke, nie? Solely because it is a secret story of life. Co?
Life?
Secret life of pets. Okej. Akcja. Zapomniałem klasnąć chyba poprzednio, nie? To nic. The nitwitting. The nitwitting. Co, źle to powiedziałem?
Nie, po prostu gadasz głupoty.
Nieprawdę mówię. Aha. Ty jesteś hejterem, którego uciszam. W tym odcinku. It ultimately spirals out of control.
Że się nie garb.
Aha. Dobrze to mówisz. And the whole scene of Patrick drinking from the aquarium is pretty energetic. Pretty energetic.
To mikrofon pewnie wyłapał. Widzę.
Nie, ja nie jestem głodny. And SpongeBob being tricked with an excuse. And SpongeBob... Nie. And SpongeBob getting tricked and disposing. And SpongeBob getting disposed... Tak, SpongeBob getting disposed. And SpongeBob being... No, this is what I would... Now, this is what I would like... It is one of my favorite concepts. Cloning characters... Nie, chodzi o to, co się później dzieje, nie to o tych włosach, no. No. I was honestly shocked to learn. I was honestly shocked to see that Sandy. I was honestly kind of shocked to see that Sandy. I was honestly kind of shocked to learn that Sandy's nieces are not that obnoxious. I was honestly kind of shocked to see that Sandy's nieces Sandy. I was honestly kind of shocked to see. Their fight with Patrick is kind of justified. Halo, dzień dobry? Halo, halo? Halo, halo? Co tam? My tu nagrywamy.
Trochę duże...
Mamy tu studio.
Dużo miejsca zajęć.
Zrobiliśmy sobie studio i nagrywamy filmik. Za chwilę będziemy kończyć. In general, there's plenty of computer-related humor, like upside down numbers make letters. In general, there is plenty of computer humor. In general, there's plenty of computer humor, like... Co?
To jest...
Widoczne?
No.
God damn it.
Nie ma, kamera dostaje lobotomii, nie? Jak ona tak
Może
robi?
trzymaj ten statyw.
Nie, wy nic nie siadaj, że kamera trzęsie. Mówią, tu trzymać. Nie, dalej.
Dalej, no, musimy nagrywać, no. I absolutely adore the homage. Homage? Jak się, Tomek, sprawdź w Google. Jak się mówi homage? Homage.
Homage.
Nie homage, homage. I teraz tak.
Sobie lampy.
No. In general, it's pretty clear that. And he even whistles the closing theme song. How awesome is that? That's neat. Nie, inaczej. And he even closes his theme song. Tak. And he even whistles his closing theme. How cool is that? Also, Plankton quickly.
Słyszałeś?
Nie.
Jakieś dźwięki w kuchni były.
Może podłoga trzeszczy.
Może no odcinek.
A, nagle o duchach i nagle prawdziwe duchy przyszły nam pomóc. No, whatever. Pewnie sąsiedzi. Zdawało się tylko. I really love how Patrick has no problem accommodating SpongeBob. Squidward. I really love how Patrick has no problem accommodating Squidward to his house. Two of the most famous and beloved cartoons. Ta.
Iconic.
Two of the most famous and... I also find SpongeBob thinking everything is haunted to be very funny. I I also find SpongeBob thinking everything is funny. Oh. I also find SpongeBob thinking everything. I also think SpongeBob thinking everything is. I also find. Well, I guess all of us sometimes get hungry. Well, I guess all of us sometimes get hungry from hungry. Podłoga trzeszczy. Co? No, jeszcze nagrywamy, nie? Więc jeszcze chwila. Nie wiem jaka długa chwila, ale...
Może zamiast very funny,
That was hilarious.
bo często powtarzasz to
No.
słowo. Powiedz quite whimsical.
No nie, to nie pasuje. And Plankton doesn't know that Krabs is Pearl's daughter. And Plankton doesn't know that Pearl is And Plankton doesn't initially know that Pearl's... I'm also a fan how Bubble Bass needs to actually work his way out. I'm also really a fan how Bubble Bass needs to actually work his way out of the debt. I also appreciate how he has to. That's crazy. It's not gonna happen. Well, I guess it is back to dreaming. Hey, what's this? A patty? Hell yeah, midnight snack. Wait a minute. This is not cheese. Hi, SpongeBob.
Dreams don't come true on their own. You need to make them real.
Yeah, perhaps I should work to make my dreams come true.
We all wish it to you.
Okay, that's enough snacks for tonight. I guess I'll just go back to dreaming.